Hey guys, welcome to the fourth episode of my Sponge plugin tutorial series. And before I get into it, I want to apologize for the delay in getting this episode up. I've had some other projects with school and stuff getting in the way, but now we're getting right back into it. And I have tutorials coming today and tomorrow, maybe the one after that. But for now, let's get into this one. And this tutorial, we're going to learn how to create a healing plugin and how to have God mode too. So like a plugin that has let's do a show right here slash heal, turn that off, heal, and then optional for player, and then slash God also be an optional for player. And I'm not talking about optional as in Java data, but like optional as in like you don't have to put a player there, because if you don't put a player there, it sets it heals you or it gods you. And what we're also going to do is if you type it again, it ungods you. And so that's just basic overview. And so for now, let's get into it. So if you haven't watched my previous episodes, the first three, I recommend you watch the first one, the second one, third one. If you need to know how to create messaging plugin, then you should go watch that. But for now, we're gonna hop into this episode, and let's get right into it. So as we did in the second or first episode, we learned how to create a command, and we learned how to use executors, and we learned where to put all that, and what methods to use and what classes to use out of the Sponge API. Um, I said earlier we're going to be using uh, the API to create a healing and God plugin. And to do that, we need to create our command specs as we did in a previous episode. So we need to do the heal command equals command spec dot builder, and then we want to do description and text out of. And as you know, it doesn't say text as in plural. That's because Sponge put in a new implementation to remove the builder of the text. So now it's just text that encapsulates all of the text, so you don't have to import two classes. But we're gonna make this heal command. You can do anything you want. You can do colors, whatever. We're actually gonna add a permission to this. This is actually a string tutorial. And I'm gonna go into permissions after I create the command specs for both of them. Um, Executor, and I know we haven't created this yet, but I'm gonna put it in now. I'm just gonna do this. Um, Actually, just get rid of that. I'll put it in after, and then arguments. And this is, if you haven't watched my previous videos, you might want to watch it because I go over how to use arguments and optionals and the arguments, stuff like that. So what we want to do is generic arguments. And since we want to have it so you can um, either use a player as an argument or just have no arguments, so you just do it to yourself, we want to do dot optional. To make this clean, let's do this. And let's do, and these are our two options, dot none, and then generic option arguments dot only one, and then generic arguments dot player, and then text dot of target. And let's close that. Oh, and we want to do dot build. There we go. And so that might be a little messy and confusing, so let me go over it. First, this one, optional, which closes right here, which encapsulate all this. Um, it allows us to choose from two different kinds of arguments. It's different from the choices um, argument parser. In choices, it it returns an argument allows from a limited set of values. So like you give it a set of values, and then it can only be one of those. But optional allows you to make your own kinds of values, which can be generic arguments. Um, and those two options are no arguments or only one of a player. Um, And then we're going to create the second one for God command. And then I do description. Oops. God command. I'm not going in depth on the descriptions. Permission. Oops. Actually, we can just do that now. And just go back up here. Permission tutorial.god. And we're going to basically do the same thing for this one because they're both will have the same kind of arguments. So dot arguments, and we want to do, actually let's just copy this, Control C, and then and there we go. So now don't need to go over this again, but it's the same concept, exact same thing. But now, as I said earlier, I'm going to go over permissions. Sponge doesn't come in like with their own permissions, not YML, as you see like in here. There's no YAML language for configuration. There's no permission that JSON thing or either. The you guys from Bucket might remember the plugin called Permissions X or other other permission plugins, but basically, all you have to do is download ones, hook into one of those, type in the permission as you say here, assign it to a group or maybe everyone. But if you don't set a permission, actually, you don't really need to. But if you do set a permission in here, uh, it basically allows everyone not to use it. It doesn't allow anyone but ops to use it, so only operators on the server can use it. So if you don't want any operators to use it, just set a permission. You don't really need a permission plugin. But if you are going to be using like different ranks for different permissions, like if administrators have higher permissions than moderators and operators, then you might want to get a permissions plugin. But we'll go over into creating permissions plugins later. But now that we have both of our command specs, we can register those commands as we learned in a previous video. Oops, I don't want to do that yet. Command dot register, and this is plugin. And we want what is the heal, and we want to do heal, not healo, and we want to register our aim. Oh no, our God command. Command register this God D. As we learned in a previous video, you can have aliases like God or whatever you want. And so now, it'll work, but it won't do anything since we don't have our executors. So now let's create both of our executors. As we learned in the previous video, we want to do our heal. Oh god, I butchered that. Executor. We want to create our God. Let's go right into our heal one first since it's a little less complicated. So for heal, as I did before, I want to implement command executor and type in the method public command result execute command source src command context args, and then it throws command exception return set. Oh, hold on. Let's do that. And so now we have our basic. Now I'll execute through the executor. And before we forget, we want to actually executor new and do it in this one too. We're getting an error in that one because it doesn't implement command executor. And now let's do that now, so we can get rid of that error. Public command result execute source. Source C. As you begin to do this a lot, you can remember all these. I know you can do uh, the implement methods, but I feel like typing it by yourself gets you a little gets your muscles going, gets your muscle memory remembering, and makes you uh, comprehend the code a lot more. Now that went away, but let's go back into heal. And so what we want to do for our heal one is first declare that there is a target, and since the this command can be run from the console and the and from a client, we don't really have to check if the source is a instance of a player, but we do have to check that the target player is an instance of a player. So therefore, we can actually say there's a target off the bat, but we can't define it yet. So first, we have to do check if the arguments has any for like a player. So if there's any arguments at all, and then we set that argument. This right here is the argument you set uh, in tutorial. So right here. So whatever you set that right here has to be what this is. And if it's not, then we know that the person is trying to heal himself. Or if it's console, then we have to give it an error. And if it's console, which we're going to do right here, if source is instance of a player, we can send a message like source dot send message text dot of. Oops, I want to import that first. Text out of text colors dot red saying console cannot heal, and we want to return command result dot success. So now we have handled that. Um, that we know it's not trying to heal console. Let's create a heal method because we know we're going to be using this method multiple times, and let's try to avoid redundancy. You can either create the method or do it, or just type this code multiple times in your each if statement. And for healing, you need to do data transaction results. We're gonna do two of them, and this is like the new thing with Sponge. We're gonna do one for the health and one for the food, or the little chicken sticks or drumsticks, whatever you call them in Minecraft. So we want to do data transaction result, and we'll do this one. I'll just do this hunger equals target dot offer, and like this is the base value, and keys is like a cool thing that Sponge has. There's like a ton of them here. Like you can, there's can fly is how you set like slash fly commands stuff like that. It's a later video, but what we want to do is health, and this is what we want to offer, and this is target dot get, and we want to get the max keys dot max health dot get. Because we want to get that double, or you can just do 20. But if the numbers ever changed or like there's different values or anything, we just want to do that. But the weird thing is for this one, let's actually copy this and let's rename this. This one actually, this is health. This is hunger, and this one we want to do keys dot food level, and there is no keys dot max food level, so we just have to offer it 20. And then what we can do here is say the target that we defined up here is equal to args, and we want to make that a player, get one target, and we want to get it from the optional. I want to do heal target. and we want to send them a message saying, we want to send the source a message saying that you healed them. Send message. We can actually we can actually do target that send message. Yeah, because this is like the same person. Target that send message. Send message, and we can do text that of. And make this green. Text colors dot green. You have been healed. And we want to return command result success, and then we want to handle if there is arguments for actually we should make this player source. Now right there is I typed it for the one that we're going to be handling now, but right up here you should make it the source casted to a player. But what I typed up there is what we need to do down here is define target as the one in the arguments. I'm going to get it from the optional. Then we want to heal the target, which is different from the command sender. And we do source.send. We're going to send two messages here because one's to the one sending the command, one's the one receiving the data. Let's do target that name has been healed. And we'll send one to target that send of text colors dot green. And we want to say you have been healed. Then we can return command result success. Okay. So now if we do this, our plugin for healing will work. But we also want to do if you don't want to heal every time you want to hurt, if you just want to become God mode per se. We're going to handle that here. This requires two parts. This requires creating the commands and the array list in this class, and then creating the listeners, which we're going to make subclasses of this one. So let's create the command part first. And actually outside of the command, we want to create a public static list of strings to keep all the gods or the gods' names in here. And we'll make array list. Oops, I didn't mean to click that. I don't think you have to put string in here anymore. Yeah, you don't need that in there anymore. I'm used to that. And the reason we have this static is because we want this data to be same all around throughout all the instances of this class. So once this data is stored in the memory, it stays as it is, and every new instance of it is the same data. And so like when we access it from this class as our subclasses for the listeners, it's still the same data inside of the list. But to set the data in the list, we want to almost do the same thing we did in the heal command. Caps lock on. Share target as we did earlier, and we want to do if args that has any for the target, which is what we set the argument to be in the main class, tutorial class. And we also want to check if the source is an instance of a player. So as you see so far, it's almost the same concept as we were doing earlier. But as you see, once we dig down farther, we're going to be changing some stuff. Let's make this red text colors not red as we did. Oop, don't want to make that green. They were thinking they did something right. Console is already God. Let's make them say you're already God. And then we want to return command result X. But if it is, if it is like an actual player, we want to set the person. So let's do this right this time. Target equals player. Can type. Such what we want to actually set it as, but we also want to check if they're also inside the list before. And this is so if they type it /god and they're already in the list, they get ungodded. And yeah, as you see, we don't have to do if source dot has permission. We don't have to do any of that because Sponge actually already handles that for us. Um, it says like you don't have permission or something. Uh, but for now, we want to check if the gods that contains target dot name, and if it does, we want to do gods dot remove. Oh, not contains. Remove target name. And we want to say target dot send message text colors dot. We should still make this green if like the command was successfully executed, and you have text that up. And we'll do text colors dot green, and you have been ungodded. And we want to return command result text success. But now if they aren't in the list, right now we could be doing source dot send message, but I guess be staying consistent. Um, text colors dot green. You don't have to do colors, just what I'm using to make it look more pretty. You have been godded. And return command success. It's now we've handled it just for if it doesn't have any arguments. But right now we need to handle if it does have arguments. If it does have arguments, we can actually set, as we did in the class earlier, who the target is, and we can set it to one of the arguments. But we need to check if it already contains like we did here. So actually, let's copy this. And I want to do, it's still target get name, it's still gods remove, it's still you've been ungodded. So actually, we can actually leave that as is. And if it doesn't, we can do copy this. And copy this down here. We don't need that actually. And you want to send the source a message too. Godded. Oh, not you have been godded. Godded player. Player plus target dot get name. Now we actually want to now that this whole entire plugin works, we want to create a way for um, other classes to access the list. So I do public list string, and we want to get the list. So get list, and then return gods public static. We don't need to make a static actually. And so now we want to create our subclasses in here. Um, yeah, actually, yeah. In here, we want to create our subclasses. Those have to be public. If you, I know you've learned in like previous tutorials that you can do this class test, and you don't have to set access modifier in some classes. But this you have to set it, or else you get an illegal access error or something because it's trying to access, or the sponge event is trying to access it, and since it doesn't have permission, since it's not public, um, it will give it an error. So we have to do public class damage listener for like to listen to all the damage events. You could create a new class for this. I'm doing this since just to keep it a small 3 class plugin, or I guess 4 class since we're creating a subclass. But right now we're going to create two listeners inside of our damage listener. But before that, we want to create that, and we're doing that to enable us to access the list, the gods list, um, for these two listeners. Public void on damage event, and this one's going to be damage entity event. And as you see, these are different than bucket events. So it's good to learn which ones are which. On interaction. And I think it's actually interact event dot primary that gets fired. But just to be safe, I'm gonna, because as you see, there's dot primary and dot secondary. Um, I think it's dot primary gets fired when entities interact with each other. But just to be safe, I'm doing the main one. And so to go up to this one, we want to get the entity. Oh, we'll do entity and equals e dot get target entity. And then we want to see if the entity is an instance of a player. Like to see that, and if it's not, return. To see that if damage is being occurred to any of the players on the servers, because we don't care about mobs or anything else. If it's not, return. But now that it is, we can declare player and say the player is the source, which is ent. And then we can do set which this is and equals new god executor. And because we said that list is static, if we grab the list, which is list of string, gods equals g dot get list. We can do if gods dot contains, if the gods doesn't contain player dot get name, return, because we don't care if they're not part of the list. But if it is, cancel the event, and that's it. And now, if an entity gets damaged, um, like if they jump off a cliff or something like that, it will get canceled. But if interaction induces damage, then we have to cancel it here. And for this one, we can do um, the same thing. Actually, yeah, we won't do that. Okay. C ent equals e dot get target entity, and if and get that back in there, and instance of player, we can return because we don't care if they ain't a player. And we can do player equals cast to player entity. And then we can do the same thing we did above, equals new god executor. And we just set the list. I know we could have set these globally so both of these could access the list, but you know, we're already this far. Get list. And we can do if gods dot contains player dot get name, return, which allows us to tell if the list contains their name. And then if it is, the same thing we did above, e dot set cancel true. So now our plugin won't actually register if those are events are firing and why. To do that, which is why I did this in one class instead of 2 different classes. Um, we can do game dot get event manager. I want to do dot register. As you see, we don't want to do listener singular. We want to do listeners plural with an S. We want to do this and new damager listener. And if you were to do game dot get event manager dot register list listener, you would have to do this. Then you would have to do damage what's it called, damage entity event dot class. And then what we had to do up here is create a um event listener, and we do damage entity event listener equals new damage listener. And that's a different way of doing this. And this is where you would implement this class with this. You would implement damage listener with event listener dot damage entity event, and then you would create the listener, and this is how you would register it. But it's a lot simpler and easier to understand if you do it just the way I did it. I'll be going over more in depth with just events in a little bit. But now that we actually created the whole command, a whole plugin, let's build it um, and see how it does. So actually, let's build it first. And it's done building. And let's start the server, as we learned in the first video. Oh, I probably shouldn't have done that. And as you see, our plugin up here loaded. And we can join it. That lets us join. It's being a little long. Refresh. I'll just join this. It doesn't like me doing that for some reason. Okay. What is this thing? Localhost? It doesn't. Oh, so let me just restart Minecraft. Um, might have been just a weird session. Let's see. Just trying to test the plugin Mojang. Okay. Oh, there we go. Single server took 60 seconds. Okay, so it just crashed. That's why. Now we know why it failed. Because it decided to crash. There we go. Now we can test it. And down here actually. Let's get out of here. Out of this cavern. And see, I have some eggs. Some spiders here. And I want to change my game mode to survival. And I want to get one of these spiders mad at me. As you see, I am getting hurt. And actually, if I do heal, I'm healed. But if I do heal Johnny, it says too many arguments, heal. But if I do yeah, so I do heals myself. But I get off of me. And if I do God, because these spiders make me mad. Yeah, hit me. See how that went. Yeah, how's it going? How's it going? You can't do anything to me. And if I jump down this cavern over here, where if I can remember is, I won't do any damage. Yeah, and they're all coming down on me. Um, and if I do God again, I get ungodded. And as you see, they can hit me again. Since I want to be God, I'll just game mode one. And I'll fly back up here. So this is just a simple thing. You can also do it so on the change of events on when the health bar goes down or when the food bar goes down, so you can disable food deterioration. You can disable their armor going down. You can disable anything you want. But this was just a simple video tutorial allowing you to create God and healing commands. You can use this, customize it however you want. Um, if you have any future suggestions for future videos, gladly appreciate them. Put them in the comments. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and goodbye.